April 3, 2014. After 14 years on Texas death row for murdering 13-year-old Kaylene Harris and claiming responsibility for 70-plus murders across America, serial killer Lynn Sells faced execution. He ate his final meal of barbecue brisket, declined to give any last words, and as the lethal injection began, started snoring while the father of his victim watched and declared, "What a great day." This is the story of the coast-to-coast killer's final 24 hours. April 3, 2014. The Huntsville Unit in Huntsville, Texas. Lynn Sells, Texas death row inmate number 999367, woke up for the last time. At 49 years old, after spending 14 years on death row, the man known as the coast-to-coast killer would be executed by lethal injection at 6 p.m. For most condemned inmates, the final 24 hours follow a specific routine: visits with family, meetings with spiritual advisors, preparation of a last will, and the selection of a final meal. But Lynn Sells was not a typical death row inmate. He had spent 2 decades claiming responsibility for murders across America. Law enforcement confirmed at least 22 killings. Sells himself claimed over 70 victims. His killing spree had terrorized communities from Texas to Illinois, from Kentucky to California. But all of that was ending today. Lynn Sells had been convicted specifically for the December 31, 1999 murder of 13-year-old Kaylene Harris in Del Rio, Texas. A Val Verde County jury sent Sells, 49, to death row in 2000 for the December 1999 stabbing death of 13-year-old Kaylene Harris in her family's trailer home near Del Rio. Katie had been stabbed 16 times and her throat slashed in her own bedroom. But Sells had made a critical mistake that night. He had left a witness alive. He confessed after a friend who was sleeping over that night survived having her own throat slit and helped identify him to authorities. 10-year-old Krystal Surles had survived despite having her throat slashed and her trachea severed. She had walked a quarter mile for help and provided the sketch that led to Sells' arrest within 48 hours. Her courage had ended the coast-to-coast killer's rampage. Now, 14 years later, Lynn Sells would face the consequences of that night and all the other nights when he had taken innocent lives. The final 24 hours for a Texas death row inmate begin when they are moved from their regular cell to a holding cell near the execution chamber. This typically happens the afternoon before the scheduled execution. On April 2, Lynn Sells was transferred to the holding cell where he would spend his final hours. Texas Department of Criminal Justice protocol allows condemned inmates to receive visitors during this time, including family members, attorneys, and spiritual advisors. Records don't indicate whether Sells received any family visits during his final day. His adult life had been marked by isolation, violence, and constant movement. Even in his final hours, he appeared to face death alone. One of the most discussed aspects of death row is the tradition of the last meal. Texas, which executes more inmates than any other state, has specific policies about final meals. For his last meal, Lynn Sells had barbecue chopped brisket, chilled pasta salad, peas and carrots, sliced pickles, sliced bread, and he had a choice of tea, punch, or water to drink. Texas death row inmates no longer receive special last meals. After an incident in 2011, the state stopped allowing condemned inmates to order meals different from what other inmates receive. Sells ate the same meal that was served to all inmates at the Huntsville Unit that day. The meal was served in the early afternoon, several hours before the scheduled 6 p.m. execution. This timing allows the inmate's body to process the food and reduces the likelihood of complications during the execution process. As the afternoon progressed, Lynn Sells had opportunities to meet with his attorney and make final arrangements. Texas law allows condemned inmates to prepare a final written statement that will be read at the execution or posted on the TDCJ website. Sells had the option to write out his thoughts, offer apologies to victims' families, or make any statement he wished. But when the time came, Tommy Lynn Sells would choose silence. Outside the Huntsville Unit, families of Sells victims began gathering. For many of them, this day had been 14 years in the making. Some had traveled from across Texas and other states to witness the execution of the man who had murdered their loved ones. As execution of Tommy Lynn Sells ended, Terry Harris, Kaylene's father, said, "What a great day." Terry Harris, Katie's father, would be among those in the witness room. He had waited 14 years to see justice served for his daughter's brutal murder. He later pleaded guilty in Behar County to strangling 9-year-old Mary Beatrice Perez, who was abducted in 1999. The missing child, who loved to dance and preferred to be called Mary B., was found dead in a creek bed a week later, clad only in a Mickey Mouse t-shirt and a single white sock. Families of Sells' other confirmed victims also had the right to witness his execution. Mary Beatrice, Mary B. Perez's family, the Surles family, and others whose lives had been destroyed by Sells' violence all had representatives present. As 6 p.m. approached, Tommy Lynn Sells was prepared for execution. Prison staff explained the process to him, asked if he had any final requests, and began the procedures that would lead him to the execution chamber. Texas uses a single-drug lethal injection protocol, a massive dose of pentobarbital, a barbiturate that causes unconsciousness followed by respiratory and cardiac arrest. The process is designed to be quick and relatively painless when administered properly. Sells had filed last-minute appeals, including challenges to the secrecy surrounding Texas's execution drugs. The Supreme Court had rejected all of them. There would be no stay of execution. At approximately 5:50 p.m., Tommy Lynn Sells was escorted from his holding cell to the execution chamber.
Heard this was going on, so something I've been curious about for a long time. Huntsville is Prison City, USA.
We have, goodness, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. We're about 30 people out here.
This particular one, especially, this is where they carry out the act.
Nobody should be executed.
I'm positive that he's innocent.
Larry Swearingen was every mom and dad's worst nightmare.
Larry Swearingen, if you can hear us,
He was someone that could look you right in the eye and stab you in the back.
know that there's 2 or 3 dozen people out here
Or strangle you with a pair of pantyhose.
supporting you
The courts, I think, got it right.
and protesting this damn murder.
I have a personal responsibility to stand in the face of violence.
We just got word from his brother that the Supreme Court has rejected the appeal. So I guess the execution will take place.
The state of Texas has executed Larry Swearingen.
Holy Mary, Mother of God,
The time of death was officially 6:47 p.m.
pray for our sinners, now at the hour of our death. Amen.
All of you are going to go straight to hell for your crimes of executing people.
But today needs to be about Melissa. It's now about her.
I also have a statement from the family. We want Melissa to be remembered as a happy, loving, kind spirit with a beautiful smile.
A bad man got what he deserved tonight. So it's a good day.
The Texas execution chamber is a small, clinical room. The condemned inmate is strapped to a gurney in the center. Windows allow witnesses, both victims' families and media representatives, to observe the execution from separate viewing rooms. Tommy Lynn Sells was brought into the chamber and secured to the gurney with leather straps across his chest, arms, and legs. And 4-line was inserted into his arm, ready to deliver the lethal dose of pentobarbital. On one side of the chamber, behind a window, sat the families of Sells victims. They had waited years for this moment. On the other side sat media witnesses who would document the execution for the public record. Texas execution protocol requires that the condemned inmate be given an opportunity to make a final statement. The warden asks if they have any last words. This is the moment when many inmates apologize, proclaim innocence, or make peace with their fate. When asked if he would like to make a final statement, Sells replied, "No." Tommy Lynn Sells, who had spent years talking about his crimes, confessing to murders, and giving interviews about his killing spree, chose silence in his final moments. He offered no apologies, no explanations, no final thoughts. Sells declined to give a final statement or make eye contact with his victims' families Thursday as he was strapped to a gurney and executed. He didn't look at the victims' families watching him. He didn't acknowledge their presence or their pain. His final act was one of callous indifference. At approximately 6:14 p.m., the warden gave the signal. The lethal injection began flowing through the foreline into Tommy Lynn Sells' arm. He took a few deep breaths, closed his eyes, and began to snore as the lethal injection drugs took effect. Witnesses reported that Sells appeared to lose consciousness within seconds. The pentobarbital acted quickly, shutting down his central nervous system. The snoring was an involuntary physical response as his respiratory system began to fail. He soon stopped moving and was pronounced dead 13 minutes later at 6:27 p.m. Central Time. 13 minutes after the injection began, medical personnel confirmed that Tommy Lynn Sells had no pulse and no respiration. The coast-to-coast killer was dead. For the families who had lost loved ones to Tommy Lynn Sells, the execution brought a measure of closure. It couldn't bring back the children he had murdered, the lives he had destroyed, or the years they had spent grieving, but it meant that he would never hurt anyone again. Krystal Surles, the survivor who had brought Sells to justice, was not present at the execution. By 2014, she was an adult trying to rebuild the life that had been shattered that night in 1999. But her courage 14 years earlier had made this moment of justice possible. After the execution, Tommy Lynn Sells' body was taken to the prison morgue. Texas law requires an autopsy of all executed inmates to confirm cause of death and document that the execution was carried out according to protocol. The official cause of death would be listed as lethal injection homicide by state authority. The time of death, 6:27 p.m., April 3, 2014. A simple concrete marker would note his TDCJ number. No name, no dates, no epitaph. Just a number representing a life that had ended in violence both inflicted and received. The execution of Tommy Lynn Sells closed one chapter in a horrific story that spanned 2 decades and multiple states. But many questions remained unanswered.